professional services firms have, for as long as I can remember, been prolific creators of content, the articles, the insights, seminars and events for their clients and referrers and prospects. It's sort of been the bedrock of professional services marketing and remains so. My very first job in a law firm in '96 with the now long gone Wild Sapt involved actually managing what it called its publications library, which was literally a dark room stuffed full of spiral bound technical updates on banking, finance and insurance law. They were there to be shared with clients, but the reality was most of them never really saw the light of day. But if you fast forward 25 years, the COVID pandemic saw pretty much every firm of every size, law and accountancy firms and consulting firms, creating COVID hubs, sharing up-to-date content, often 3 or 4 times a day to reflect then what was a very rapidly changing landscape. Some firms have taken this to quite sort of extreme levels. If you look at firms like Pinsent Masons with its Outlaw program, they're publishing something like 2,000 articles a year and have a team of 5 full-time journalists creating this content. With some of the other law firms that we've seen, they're producing sort of 30 or 40 articles a week. And you do question how many of them are being read by the audience that they're intended. Now, of course, that mix isn't just articles. Now it's video, it's podcast and webinars and things like this. There's a really good reason why firms do this. I think it does give those clients the insights that they want and need, and it's a great way of starting conversations with clients. I think for existing clients, it helps strengthen those relationships as well. It's sort of that value add there. Increasingly, they're a very helpful way of demonstrating the firm's culture and values. And I think for those that create these articles, these videos, there's an enormous sense of pride in doing so, even if it is perhaps just their mothers and fathers that end up reading these sorts of things. And I would argue professional services firms are sort of increasingly looking like publishing businesses. But unlike a publishing business, there doesn't seem, or in most firms, there doesn't seem to be someone there coordinating this and acting almost as an editor that you do see in a newspaper or a magazine. And increasingly so, I believe there should be someone in firms taking that responsibility. I think there is this inherent tension between marketing and the fee earning teams within firms. I think partners will often question how, so if you've been in a role for 10 or 20 years, how can a marketing person ever understand the knowledge that you've accumulated over that career and turn that into these content pieces? And in doing that as an editor, I'm not suggesting that these people don't write and don't create content, but there is some kind of strategic oversight to there. And it's a call to move away from the spray and pray approach to content marketing. To give you an illustration, as I interviewed last month the GC at Vodafone, Andy Yorston. He told me that he received something like over 100 emails a week from law firms offering him insights, pieces of thought leadership. And he told me that most of them go unopened. He just simply doesn't have the time to read this. It was interesting. He told me actually the shorter, punchier insights, sort of the 300 to 500 word pieces, are the pieces that he is more likely to open, and even more so if they come from someone, a name that he recognizes. And it's that 2-minute read that he is after when he does open these pieces. And this is backed up by some research that we did with Meridian West, a consultancy we work quite closely with. They did a survey of over 500 CEOs, and they said exactly the same. They want these short, punchy insights. They also said, however, if they want behind those short, punchy insights, the meat, the detail, the technical insights, should they want to explore that subject further. And I think sort of with this landscape where firms are creating so much stuff, where there is so much demands on our time, that I think firms need to take this much more strategic approach to their content programs. And I think the publishing world is the inspiration where they should look from. I would also argue that that editor role should sit firmly in your marketing and business development team. I think most marketers and BD people at the moment are very, very busy and probably don't have the expertise or the skills to do that role. But I think bringing in someone who does will help firms really get to grips with their content programs. They should that role, they'll understand what clients want, how they want to receive it, whether it's best as a written piece, best as a video or audio piece, even down to the times of day when content should be distributed. Now, that role, they won't necessarily understand the technical content, but I don't think they need to. They will understand how that content is likely to land with a client. And they should ultimately be the arbiter of whether a piece of content ever sees the light of day through a firm's official channels or not. I mean, if you take the example of, I don't know, The Sun, The Times, The Economist, The Yorkshire Post, even Hello Magazine, it's the editor that decides what runs in those newspapers and magazines, and not the individual journalists. And I think it's probably about time that professional services firms did the same.